If you have a desire to become a better version of your current self, then this podcast is for you. I share with you helpful thoughts, tips, and stories surrounding fitness and self-improvement which you can apply to your life today. So for those of you that want to take control of your life, to learn, to grow, to become that which you desire most, I am your host, Connor Malone, and this is the pursuit of constant improvement. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing why potentially at the moment you feel so fed up. If you're stuck in a rut right now, we're going to be discussing everything you need to know about escaping that. So what we're going to be, as I said, going over is essentially if you are at the moment feeling any sense of boredom, inconsistency, or just stuck in a position where you generally don't want to be with your own fitness, with your own self-improvement, and essentially the direction that you're headed, we're going to discuss everything you need to know about overcoming that. Because this is a position, of course, I've been in myself and so many people are in. It's the first place that clients come to me in. This situation where they're not happy with where they are. They are in a state of boredom, inconsistency, and just generally in a rut. So everything we go over today is going to be helping you get out of that position from there. So if you're not happy with where you are right now, you know you want to be in a better position with, again, both your fitness and self-improvement, this episode is for you. Now, essentially what we're going to get to is a point where you can create what I would call purpose, direction, and structure in your life. These are key aspects of the pursuit of constant improvement because, in my opinion, every single human needs some form of something to pursue. That's something I really want you to take hold of today. It's something that I really need you to understand before we get going, is that as humans, we need some element of progression in our life. And to me, that element of progression is the pursuit of constant improvement. So right off the bat, the solution to your boredom, the solution to your rut, the solution to you being in a situation where you don't want to be right now is creating purpose. It's creating something to pursue, something to build. And we're going to delve into that today, how you can do that. Because so many people talk about purpose and they think about finding purpose and everything like that. But we're going to discuss how you can create that for yourself. Because inevitably, that is what the pursuit of constant improvement is. It is a lifestyle where we are, as it says in the name, constantly improving, week by week, month by month, year by year. And essentially, that comes off of a vision. It comes off of a vision of the type of person we want to be, and we pursue that. So we're going to discuss that today, how exactly we do that. Because as I said, as humans, we need purpose. We need something to pursue, something to seek improvement in. Because if you look at any point in your life when you were doing particularly well, maybe you were enjoying yourself, whenever you felt happiest in your adult life, there's probably been some sense of progression there. Whether that's through studying, through your career, through maybe a fitness journey you've been on before, whenever you've felt a sense of progression, you'll tend to be happier. Mark Manson says that happiness comes from solving problems. And that makes sense because that is what an element of progression is. You solve problems. You have a problem in life, you solve it. Of course, solutions create problems, so there's never-ending problems in life. But if we choose to look at it from that perspective, that life is solving problems, then that is that element of progression we need. So what we're going to discuss today is how you can find something that is worth pursuing and gives you that element of progression, because it's a key thing. Because if we don't have it, as human beings, we start to have this inner conflict with ourselves. Because we quickly pick up on the fact that we aren't progressing. And we see others progress because we're creatures of comparison. We always compare ourselves to others, especially with social media. So when you see others progressing in areas of life that you want to progress in, it doesn't feel good. And then you had this internal conflict. You're not happy with yourself. You maybe experience feelings of depression, feelings of low self-worth. And one of the ways we can change that is, again, by having something to pursue, something to seek improvement in. Now, all of this, as I said, comes from the fact that we aren't making progress. So think of anything in life that you've looked at in terms of an individual, probably on social media nowadays, or it could be a friend, someone that you've looked at and you think, wow, they're doing so well. Maybe you felt slightly envious towards them. There's something that they have that you want. Usually this is a bad thing because we keep that to ourselves and we begin to resent that person. But what I want you to think of is, what is something that you've seen in someone else that you admire? Because that could be a sign. That could be something that you want. Maybe somebody's getting in good shape. They're building a career. They're building their own business. What is it about them that you admire? That's going to be one of the key things that we go over today, because that's how we find and create our own purpose, by looking at others, seeking inspiration from others. Because purpose is created. It's not just magically found. You're not going to wake up one day with a purpose. You're going to create it for yourself. Now, we're going to go into right now how you can do that. Because the problem is, most people live disorganized lives. They live lives where they don't really know where they want to be, which means they don't know what they have to do on a week-to-week and a month-to-month basis. So it's hard to find an element of progression in our lives. Because again, you have nothing to pursue. There is no general purpose there. Now, what we're going to look to do today is create that sense of progression, that thing to pursue, so you can build up a routine that's filled with habits that help you push towards that. That's what I've done over the past 7 years of my own self-improvement journey. I've started to discover the type of guy I want to become, the type of traits, characteristics, and skills that I want to develop, which has meant that my routine could be filled with habits that help me push towards that. All of the habits that I carry out on a day-to-day basis are helping me towards something. Like, it could be building my physique, it could be building my business, it could be building my mind, becoming more resilient, becoming more disciplined, becoming happier, becoming better. So that allows me to live with intention, live with purpose. That's what we need. That's where we get that element of progression, when we live with purpose. And again, to create that purpose, we need something to pursue. And we're going to do that by creating what we call an ideal self. So there's a quote by Dan Cole that I like, and it's his opinion essentially on how we create purpose. And we need to build something. That's his kind of take on it. And he said, the solution to boredom is building. Build a skill, build a brand, build your body, build your mind, build your social life, build anything. He says, if it doesn't matter if you don't know how, that's the entire point. You learn, act, and discover your way out of boredom. Now, boredom is a word that I used in the introduction to this podcast because it's what a lot of us feel quite often. We'll feel elements of boredom. We kind of don't know what we're doing. We have, again, nothing to pursue, nothing to push on forward with. So solving that boredom comes from having something to build. And what we're going to build is ourselves, our ideal self. Because once you get an idea of the type of person you want to be, you can build towards that. But as Dan Cole listed here, there's so many different things that we can build. We can build skills, a brand, your body, your mind, your social life. And as he said, you can just build anything. As soon as we start to build things, we start to, as Mark Manson says, solve problems. This is purpose. This is how we create purpose. Again, we're not just going to find this thing, we're going to create it for ourselves. So again, to overcome boredom, to stop feeling fed up in general with your life, you need something to build. Now, you don't need to know in terms of the ideal picture, the perfect life picture, like what type of job you want, what type of partner you want, where you want to live. These are the three biggest decisions you'll make in life in terms of who you're going to spend the rest of your life with, where you're going to live, and what you're going to do. Those are big decisions to make. Those take time. However, what you can start to decipher right now is the type of person you want to be. What are the characteristics? What are the skills? What are the traits that you want to embody? So when people look at you, what do they say? What do they think? Oh, they're a disciplined person, or maybe they're a patient person. Maybe they're consistent. What are those things that you want? It's really important that we start to outline that. We outline that first of all, because everything that we're going to do going forward is going to come back off this. Again, what's the type of person you want to be? The characteristics, the skills, the traits that you want to embody. What's the type of person that you want to be? That's essentially what we're asking here. Because to create a purpose-driven life, we start by building our ideal selves. Now this, again, as I've said, is something that we can derive a great deal of purpose from. That is our purpose. That is something to pursue. When you have that vision of the type of person you want to be, the skills, the characteristics, the traits, you can work towards that every single day, which is exactly what I do. So I have type of traits that I want within business, within my social life, within relationships, and I can work on building them. So I don't experience boredom very often at all, because every single day I have stuff to do. One of the things, unfortunately, that I would experience is overwhelm, because with an ideal self and with pursuing something, you do tend to get feelings of overwhelm. That's kind of part and parcel with it. Of course, you can deal with that. But boredom is not something I experience often. It's something I used to always experience before I had that, when I didn't have something to pursue. when I didn't have a clear purpose or direction. But since I created that through an ideal self, all of that changed. Now remember, we need an element of progression. That is where this is going to come from. In order for us to feel happy as humans, we need that element of progression. So for us to begin creating that, I want you to ask yourself, what do you often daydream about? In terms of, like, do you ever think of where you want to be, like what type of person you want to be, who you would be around, what you would be doing, what are the things that you daydream about? I remember somebody asked me that question and it brought so much to the front of my mind. I was like, wow, I think about traveling, I think about business, I think about my fitness, my self-improvement. And those are three of my highest values. Those are the things that I want to develop most in my life. So that helped me create a lot of clarity to this ideal self. It's like, right, well, business, travel, experiencing things, and also my fitness and self-improvement. Clearly, if I start to build those three things, I'm going to derive a great deal of purpose from that. So again, I'll ask you that question. What do you often daydream about? What is that ideal situation that you think of yourself in? Because that is something that we can create and purpose off of that. Another question for you. Who do you find inspiring and why? I'd mentioned this earlier. You probably see things in people that you admire. Sometimes that can build up resentment. But what is it and why? Why do you admire that about them? Maybe it's the fact that they came from a position that you're in right now and they managed to turn that around. They managed to overcome obstacles and hurdles, build a physique, a business, a routine, a life that they're proud of. Maybe that's what you want. Because if you are feeling inspired or admiration towards someone for something, that's a strong feeling. That is happening for a reason. We don't feel inspired, we don't feel admiration towards someone for nothing. It comes from something clear. So that could be a sign to you. Maybe that's something that you should be building towards. That could be your purpose. That's how you avoid boredom. That's how you escape that rut. By looking at whatever that is and building towards that. Starting to become that type of person. Another question, what are the qualities and traits those people have that you admire? So outline them. Is it their discipline levels? Is it how consistent they are? Is it how they treat other people? Is it how happy they are? Is it how they respond to hardship? What is it about them that you admire? Because again, that's something that you can do. You can embody that. You can build towards that. For me, it was always, discipline was a big one. Nobody is naturally disciplined, at least very few people. So when I used to see guys that were very disciplined, they didn't talk about it much, but they showed it through their actions, that was something I admired. So then for me, as at the time, a 20-year-old guy, I could say, right, how do I build discipline? Because I want to be that type of person. It is a trait that I admire. And I've worked on that for however many years now. And of course, I'm still working on that, and I will forever work on that to become more disciplined. But that's brought a great deal of purpose into my life. One of the things that done for me was, when I started thinking of discipline, I brought into something to my life called a high performance day, this was about 3 years ago now, maybe more. No, 3 years ago it was. Essentially, I seen people getting up early and I thought, right, the people I admire, they get up early. They train in the morning. A lot of these guys go running. They do difficult things. I didn't run at the time. I didn't get up early. I didn't do any of these things. So I looked at, right, how can I bring that into my life? And I created this idea of a high performance day, which is 1 day per week. So what I'd do is I'd wake up at 4 a.m. once per week, which was 2 or 3 hours before when I usually woke up, on my first alarm, which again was a new one. I would do that. I would go out for a run. It would take me 15 minutes. That was it. But it was more the aspect of getting outside, getting uncomfortable, again, practicing discipline. Because in my eyes at the time, that's what a disciplined person done. Anyway, long story short, I'd done that for well over a year and a half I'd done that for, once a week, every single week. And that totally changed everything for me. It started to make me more disciplined. It started to become part of my identity because I started to relate to that. It was like, that was what I knew myself for. I am the type of guy that gets up, albeit once per week. It's better than none, that's for sure. You think I'd done that for a year and a half? That's could be close to 100 times almost. So yeah, these are really key things. Again, I seen that in other people and then I brought that in for myself. So it gave me something to build. It gave me purpose. That brought a great deal of purpose into my life. So again, what are the qualities and traits that those people have that you admire? Those people you find inspiring. What are those traits? Imagine you're living a life that you're truly proud of. What values, daily routines, and goals have shaped that version of you? That's a quote I heard a little while ago, and I was like, that makes so much sense. That totally sums it up. So again, think of into the future, your ideal self, the type of life that you want to be living. What would the habits you would need to carry out, what would they be in order to get you into that position? Like if you were living a life, again, as a disciplined, consistent person, what habits would make you that? That's one of the good things about having, I suppose as some people would say, a mentor or friends that are in positions where you want to be in. You can look and you can ask them directly, what are the things that you've done to get you into the position where you are now? And you can start to do that. You can gain inspiration from that and start to copy aspects of their lifestyle, of their routine, and follow through in that. You have a roadmap, because those people have already done it. Everything you want in life, every skill you want to develop, every trait you want to embody, somebody has already done that. Look for the breadcrumbs. What have they done in order to do that? Because you can find that. You can find it on YouTube, you can find it in books. That's the thing I love about books. It's like we can read from the greatest minds that have ever lived. So any skill you want to develop, somebody that is a master of that skill has wrote about it. So the breadcrumbs are there, you pick up on them, then you can start to create a routine which will help you develop into that ideal self that you have. Again, this brings that purpose into our life. So less boredom, no more ruts, we can begin to escape that. So once we have that vision, we know the type of traits that we want to embody, the type of characteristics we want to embody. That's all good and well, but we need to create a routine that helps us pursue that helps us push towards that. That's where the real purpose comes from. Because it's great to have a vision, but what's actually going to get us there? It's going to be the habits, the steps, the actions that push us forward towards that. So if you want to be a hardworking, disciplined, motivated person, what is it that a hardworking, disciplined and motivated person does? What do they do on a day-to-day basis? Do they get up early? Do they train? Do they track their nutrition? How much work do they do? Do they read? Do they journal? What are all the things that they do? These are the type of questions that we have to ask ourselves, and then we have to shape our routine around those things. Because as I said before, those are the things that move us forward. It's not the vision itself, it's not the goal itself. So the simple part of it is, what do you have to do in order to become the type of person you want to become? And whatever that is, you need to make that regular. You need to make that consistent. For me, it was those high performance days. It was reinforcing that discipline. It was getting outside, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Every single week I was doing that. So discover what those things are, what those habits are, and then we build them into our routine. And when we start to do them consistently, that's how we start to develop into our ideal self. And this is, again, how we rid ourselves of boredom, how we escape ruts, and how we start to pursue the type of person that we want to become. All stems from that ideal self, and then that routine that we build around it. Because that is how we create a purpose-driven, intentional routine. Because if you think of your routine right now, there is probably little intention behind it. You just do things for the sake of it. Like you're doing things because certain people ask you to do them, whatever, which is fine, but it's, again, there's a clear lack of purpose there. Once you have that ideal self, that clear thing you want to pursue, now you can start living in an intentional way. You're doing things for a reason, and that feels good. Because if we don't have that element of progression, it's because we don't have those things. Now, just to summarize that, by building an ideal self, we create a routine around it, we bring purpose to direct our thoughts, and we begin to have something to build. Because that's what Dan Cole spoke about in that quote I shared with you. We need something to build. You can build yourself. You can build skills around that. And there's a Marcus Aurelius quote that I really like, and he says, "People who labour all their lives but have no purpose to direct every thought impulse towards are wasting their time, even when hard at work." So what he's saying there is that people work extremely hard in life. But if you have no intention behind it, there is no reasoning for it, in his mind, you're wasting your time. And I would agree. We need to live an intentional, purpose-driven lifestyle. That's how we get that element of progression. That's how we escape boredom. We become happier. All through that process. Now, one of the words I've mentioned multiple times throughout this episode has been the word rut. A rut, when we're stuck in a position where we don't want to be. When there's seemingly no clear reason for it, we just can't shake it. You've probably experienced it. I certainly have. In fact, although I have a great deal of purpose in my life and I have an intentional lifestyle, I have clear reasoning for doing things, I still experience ruts. Usually short term, but I understand for the fact that a lot of people could have been in a rut for months. There's 3 ways that I've used in the past to help escape a rut, and I'm going to share them with you just now. One of them is a short-term one. It's from Naval Ravikant, and this is like if you're in a, I don't know, a little bit of a funk. Maybe it's been a few days, maybe it's been a few weeks. Usually a few days, a short-term thing. How do you escape that? I get this a couple of times per week at least. I'm not feeling great, I'm not particularly motivated. Maybe I'm a little bit underslept. I'm feeling, my discipline isn't really kicking in. What can we do to escape that rut that we're in? Maybe we're sitting on our phone, we're falling back into bad habits. Well, Naval Ravikant says there's 3 things that we can do. We can utilize exercise, music, and meditation. These are 3 ways that we can change the way that we think, relatively rapidly as well. Because exercise on a physiological level will change how we feel about ourselves. It will release endorphins, feel-good hormones. That will alter your state at the time. So the last thing you probably want to do is exercise. But if you realize that that could be one of the key things you need to do in order to escape a rut that you're in right now, it's well worth doing. And it's something I do on a regular basis, especially cardio or intense exercise. It tends to be the best for, again, that endorphin release. If it's a low intensity session, you're not going to get as strong a hormonal response from it. So an intense session, it could be short, it could be 15, 20 minutes, it could be a HIIT session, it could be with weights, whatever it happens to be. You get a little bit of sweat on, you work hard, you'll feel so much better after that. And that's one of the methods you can utilize if you are feeling in a rut, you're not feeling great right now. Exercise, get an intense session and you will feel so much better after it. And again, as I said, something I utilize on a regular basis. The other one is music. Few things have the ability to alter our states like music does. Like you'll experience that, like how easily does music change your emotions? Like we listen to a sad song, guess what? We feel more sad. We listen to a happy song. Maybe there's a song that particularly motivates you. This is one that's a little bit nuanced. It can work at times, but if you're somebody who listens to a lot of music and you're sitting hoping that an Eminem song is going to motivate you to go to the gym, it's not always going to work. But for me personally, I don't usually tend to listen to music too often. Every time I listen to it, because I listen to it in such a small scale, it can help alter my mood, even the slightest bit. So again, all it needs to do is just change your thought impulses, just change the way you're thinking at the time, because the way that we think will dictate our actions. And if you can listen to something that changes your state, even just a little tiny bit, it can help begin the process of you escaping that rut. So something to keep in mind as well. Music can be a useful tool for that. The last one, probably the most difficult, yet seems the easiest, would be meditation. Now, meditation obviously gives us the ability to sit alone with our thoughts, sit in silence. Maybe you listen to music, maybe you listen to a guided meditation. This is another thing that alters our state. It alters our emotions, how we are. A lot of people see it as a waste of time. I would totally disagree. Because if you're in a position where you're overthinking, maybe your mind's a bit fuzzy, you're not feeling great right now, meditation can be that thing to alter that, to change that. And again, in a short-term way as well. So 3 things that you can utilize: exercise, music, meditation. That was Naval Ravikant that spoke about them. I've utilized all 3. To me, exercise has always been the most profound, but that could be from a lack of experience with meditation and the music one not being as strong for me. But these are all skills that you can develop. You can become better at meditating. You can become better at exercising. Music, maybe not so much, but those 2 definitely useful tools to use when trying to escape a rut. Now, my favourite, the most effective one, I believe, for escaping a rut is the idea of changing the environment and changing the activity. I get this all the time when I'm working. If I'm sitting in the office at home and I'm working and I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling fed up, maybe I'm writing content and I've got a mind block and I'm sitting there and I'm not actually getting any work done, and then I start to procrastinate, I pick up my phone. That's a position that probably everybody listening to this has found themselves in. You're trying to do some work, you get stuck, you hit that rut, and you pick up your phone, you start to procrastinate, you go and make food, you do any of these things. One of the best things you can do, again, as I said, is change the environment and change the activity. Because if you're stuck in the same room, you're in the same environment the whole time. How do you expect anything to change? If you're doing the same activity, what do you expect? Just your willpower to help you overcome that? Willpower is finite, it will run out. So what you can do is you can change the environment, you can go to a different room, you can go to a different place. But if you change the activity, that's where you get a great deal of power from. So it could be exercise, it could be a walk. A walk's a great one because it's accessible. Get out, go for a walk, 10, 20 minutes. I do this with a run. That's usually when I do my short runs, is if I'm working during the week, I will go out for a 15, 20 minute run. And when I come back, I feel so much better. I feel mentally reset. And then I change the environment, because if you go back into the exact same environment with the exact same task, guess what? You're going to hit that rut again. So again, you can change the activity in a physical way, or you can change the activity in terms of what you're actually doing. So in my situation, if I was sitting writing content, well, maybe I don't do that. Maybe I go into building out client programs. Maybe I catch up on some messages I have, whatever it happens to be. Change the environment, change the activity. That's how you can begin to overcome a rut, because then when you start to change the activity, you can build momentum, because you start to complete that activity and then you go back to the task that you were initially stuck on in a much better mental state, ready to attack that task. So again, that's one I've used a lot, because what it does is when we don't do that, when we don't change the environment, we don't change the activity, nothing changes. Again, like this quote is the most simple quote ever, but it's great. Nothing changes if nothing changes. How many times have you complained to somebody about a situation you're in with your life? Could be to do with work, could be the shape you're in. Anything, your physical health, you complain about it. You're talking about how you want it to change, but you never change. Nothing is altered. In fact, there's a quote by Einstein that says that, and essentially it's about insanity, and how insanity is just repeating the same task over and over again and expecting a different result. We always do this. We're terrible for complaining. We say, oh, I want to change this, I want to change that, but nothing physically changes. It can be the same with a rut. If you're complaining about being stuck in a rut, being stuck in one task, but you don't change the activity, you don't change the environment, nothing is going to change, because change doesn't happen by chance. It happens by change. So keep thinking of that. Next time you're in a rut, what change can you make to get out of this rut? Now, the last one is the idea of a negativity audit. This is a bigger scale one. This isn't necessarily a short-term one, but this is one that would create profound change in the long term. So negativity audit is essentially asking yourself what causes you to feel low mood or unmotivated. It's like if I'm thinking, I can think right now of times in my weeks or throughout the month when I feel particularly low mood or unmotivated or I lack energy. It's usually off the back of, it could be using my phone a lot, it could be when I've had a lack of sleep, it could be when I've spent time around certain people. That's a common one. What are these habits or actions or environments that when you're in them or when you're doing them make you feel low energy, low mood? What are those things? It could be, for example, a lot of people, obviously the day after alcohol. It's an easy one. Obviously you're going to feel tired. Obviously you're going to feel low mood. You're going to feel unmotivated. What are those habits that are a regular part of your life that cause negativity? Usually as a side effect. But again, for me, a big one was this type of people I was spending time with. If you're spending time with people and when you leave spending time with them, you just feel drained, not a good sign. So look at these areas in your life. What are these bad habits? What are these negative environments, these negative people that are draining you of energy? And then you can look to remove that. Or else, guess what? You're just going to constantly find yourself in a rut. It's one of the most common things I find with clients that come to me and they say, oh, well, I am going to the gym and I am training, but I'll train for 2 weeks and then I'll fall off it, and I'll track my nutrition, and then I'll fall off it, I'll follow this diet, and then I'll fall off it. And when we look at their life, it's very clear to see that there is 1 or 2 bad habits that just keep recurring, and because they've not removed them or at least reduced them from their life, they keep falling back into ruts. So it could be alcohol. They overconsume alcohol. The next day they're hungover. They're not going to go to the gym. They're not going to track their calories. They're going to overconsume because they're hungry. They're underslept. And then that carries into the next day and then the next day, and then they just start to feel better. And then they write off the week because they think, oh, well, it's been 3 days already. So again, look at that. Where is the negativity? Where is the distraction in your life? Because that is the enemy. Distraction is the enemy. Is it environments? Is it habits? What is that? Look at whatever that is and then look to remove that from your life. Now, the takeaways from today's episode, the main points of today's episode, which I wanted to outline for you, were essentially, first of all, the reason that you feel so fed up is because of your lack of structure and your lack of purpose. You have nothing to dedicate yourself to. You have nothing to pursue. You have nothing to seek improvement in. And as I said in the beginning, as human beings, we need that. We need an element of progression. So what I hope this episode has helped you do is find out how you can create that element of progression, how you can build something in your life, which the easiest thing for us is an ideal self. It's nothing to do with materials or possessions, it's you. That's something you can work on today and every single day for the rest of your life. How do you become a better person? How do you respond better to situations in life? How do you start making the right decisions? Because that is key. That is the big thing I want you to take from this. Again, you need something to pursue improvement in. It's the whole point in this podcast is to help you create a life where you can pursue constant improvement. Because that is, in my opinion, where fulfillment, where happiness comes from, when we seek improvement in things that we enjoy. So again, we create something for us to build. We do that by creating a vision of our ideal self. Once we have a vision of our ideal self, the type of person we want to be, the traits, the characteristics, maybe even the values that we want to uphold, then we can create a routine that helps us pursue that. So what are the habits and actions that you need to carry out on a day-to-day basis in order to become the type of person that you want to become? That is the question we have to ask ourselves. And once you outline that for yourself, there you go. You have something to build. You have that element of progression there. Now, when it comes to escaping ruts and making change, you have the things I spoke about, Naval Ravikant, with the exercise, the music, the meditation. You have the idea of the negativity audit, and of course, changing the activity and changing the environment. Two critical things you can do when you feel that you're stuck in a rut, particularly with a task that you're trying to do. And I'll say it once more. Nothing changes if nothing changes. If you're going to sit and complain about the position you're in life, you have to be willing to make change. There is going to be sacrifice. There is going to be things you have to give up. But that is a necessary evil. This is something that you have to do, because the reason that you've been stuck in this situation, the reason that you've been fed up for so long, is because of your lack of change. Change doesn't happen by chance. It happens by change. And in today's episode, we've given you an abundance of things that you can begin to change. Now, here was the quote actually I mentioned about Einstein earlier. It was, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So ask yourself, is that you? Are you expecting different results, but you keep doing the same thing time and time again? Well, there's that element of change that we need. Now, to finish off today's episode, I have a quote for you. And it goes like this. It says, "Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor." And the whole point of that quote is that change is not easy. Change is something that you can create for yourself. Again, for he is both the marble and the sculptor. You're the one that sculpts the change, but the change can be sculpted from you, the type of person that you are. It's such a simple thing that we can pursue. Again, everybody thinks of when somebody mentions a position they want to be in life, people think of the material possessions, the ideal outcomes. Fuck the outcome, fuck the material possessions. What is the type of person you want to become? What are those traits, what are those characteristics that you can pursue change in, starting today? Now, as ever, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you gained some value from that. I hope there's something that you can apply from this episode today and inevitably help you in your own pursuit of constant improvement. Thank you for listening.